It's getting hot in here!
Hey guys, so we're here and we're starting our second card review for the Knights of the Frozen Throne, which will be the cards revealed from July 28th, and we will go until the cards revealed on August 2nd. So we have about 5 days of card reveals to look at, and there was a lot of cards revealed, so this might be a bit of a long one, but looking forward to providing some thoughts on the cards we've seen, and some of them are pretty cool. Let's just go in reveal order this time. So we're going to start with the ones revealed on July 28th and just walk through them one at a time and kind of give some thoughts. I'm mostly looking at if I feel they're constructed playable or not constructed playable. This one's an easy one to review. 0 mana 1/1 beast. It's an upgrade on a wisp. It's the exact same as a wisp, but it's a beast. Really reduces the quality of random beasts. Boy, that artwork sure is cute though, isn't it? I don't know if there's anything more to say about this. Can't really see it being constructed playable, but maybe there's some sick beast synergy aggro deck someone can come up with. Next up is Shadow Blade. This one's really good. 3 mana, 3/2, battlecry. Your hero is immune this turn. This is a rogue weapon, and boy, rogues have needed more weapons for a while. It's great to see a weapon. This is a weapon that you can play on curve pretty effectively. You're not taking damage when you use it. You can get buffs and stuff out of it for, say, some pirate synergy or some other rogue weapon synergy. I think this was like a mandatory inclusion in this expansion that rogues were going to get a new weapon because they've really been weak on the weapon side of things for a while. And this weapon brings it all together in a good package that is definitely playable and constructed. So I would rate this one pretty highly. Next up we have Defile. Oh man, this card's crazy. Boy, this card is just ridiculously good. This might take one of my spots for like favorite cards this expansion. It's kind of a new mechanic. Deal 1 damage to all minions. If any die, cast this again. So the first thing to say about this is yes, it can cast again on the like multiple cast. So if the first time it deals damage and it kills something, cast again. If the second time it also deals damage and kills something, it casts another time. And it keeps going until it doesn't kill something. So this would scale with spell power. Like this is just a really strong type of board clear mechanic, and I like this because it's an intelligent mechanic. It's requiring the other player to use it at the right moment to maybe provide some setup for it. Heck, you could kill your own minions with this. You could have it so like I'll play a 1 health minion just to make it do 2 damage by killing my own minion and then proccing again. There's so many ways that you can use this and that you're going to be able to think about how to use this as a skillful player. So I'm a big fan of cards like this, and they did say we'll see a couple more mechanics that are using this if any die, cast this again style, which is really cool. It's a very thoughtful type of mechanic, I think, which is something I enjoy a lot. So big thumbs up on that card. That is a Warlock card. Next up, Cryostasis. This one's a weird one. They're giving shamans all this freeze stuff, and I don't know how to rate this freeze stuff. Give a minion +3/+3 and freeze it. Like, I don't know. This stuff is getting really weird with all the freeze for shaman. You never thought of shaman as like a freeze class. Suddenly they've gotten 3 or 4 freeze cards and things that synergize with it this expansion. So I'm a bit torn on this. I'm going to say it's maybe playable, but I really don't know what to think about freeze shaman. So I'll probably just reserve my judgment on this one, and we'll find out when we get to build some decks with it. It's a pretty weird one, though. I mean, do you even use it on your own minion or the enemy minion? It's not clear. I'm not even sure how I'm casting that on. Next up, more Rabby. 6 mana, 4/4. Whenever another minion is frozen, add a copy of it to your hand. So does this work on enemy minions? I actually don't know if I've seen this card. More Shaman freeze stuff, as we were just speaking of it. This Shaman freeze stuff is really hard to tell. So this guy's a 4/4 for 6. His stats are terrible. Stats are just awful, like he's below a 4 mana card. But I think that works on enemy minions, right? So you like freeze their Tyrion and then you play this guy and you get a Tyrion. I mean, it's probably got some potential. I like these a troll. We don't have enough trolls in the game, honestly. They've been pushed away since Vol'jin's death. Not a lot have been making it around, so just need a troll hero now. Yeah, I don't know what to say about this free shaman stuff. I'm really going to have to see it in play before I have any idea how that works. Really complicated with the way freeze works, and then you're doing stat bonuses. Next up is the priest card, Eternal Servitude. 4 mana, discover a friendly minion that died this game, summon it. I think this card is really good. This card is really, really good. It improves priest spell selection. It gives you a minion, it gives you a discover a minion. If you play it on curve, it's okay. You could get like an injured Blade Master or, I don't know, at least a 3/4. But if you play it later in the game, well, now you can get some really big stuff. You can get a Ysera or Primordial Drake, just all the giant minions that you've been using. With a Purify Priest, you could be getting more of the Purify minions you used early. I think this is a really flexible card, and it's a cool one as well. It's something that Priest often needs, is like a way to pick the right minions, so I would give a big thumbs up to this card, and I look forward to trying it myself. Next up, we have Doomed Apprentice. 3 mana, 3/2, your opponent's spells cost 1 more. Oh yeah, what the heck is this card? This card seems terrible. They seem to overrate this, like, your opponent's spells cost 1 more really highly. I don't even feel like that's that impressive of a mechanic. Like, you could put this on maybe a 3/4 and it wouldn't get played still, but as a 3/2 for 3 mana, this is complete garbage. You are not going to play this card. You're going to be sad to see this card in an arena selection even. It's like below arena tier of card. They must have just like play tested these opponent spells cost a bit more and been like, wow, that mechanic's really strong. We actually can't make cards with good stats with that. And then we got the 6 mana 5/5 and we got this thing. Both of which seem really crappy in my opinion. Maybe I'll be surprised, but I would give this a super low tier rating, below even arena tier. Next up is Prince Valinar. 4 mana 4/4. If your deck has no 4-cost cards, gain Lifesteal and Taunt. Oh yeah, I remember looking at this one. This guy is, I don't know, I don't think he's that good. His stats are just too low. Like, Taunt 4/4 is not even worth playing. Lifesteal Taunt, okay, so I'm going to heal for 4. It's like a 4/4 taunt that is +4 health. It's a little better, but I need no 4-cost cards in the deck. I'm not even sure it would be broken if you just made him 4/4 lifesteal taunt every time. I couldn't rate this card too highly. 4 mana cards are pretty powerful, and I don't think he's worth it even if you got the effect. Next up is Dead Man's Hand. Shuffle a copy of your hand into your deck. Oh yeah, this is a really weird warrior card. So this is an anti-fatigue mechanic, and you can choose some stuff with it. Like, you get a lot of choice as a player what you're shuffling into your deck. You could play your stuff first and then shuffle some important cards, or you could just shuffle a lot of cards to try to get as far away from fatigue as you can. It's really complicated. I don't know if this is actually going to see play because it's a pretty specific mechanic, and you wouldn't want to draw it anytime early in the game, and it's got like a low mana cost, right? So I don't know. Can't say I'm a huge fan of this, but it's a really unique mechanic, so in that sense it's cool, and I don't want to say it's unplayable, but it doesn't seem too playable from my current standpoint. It would need like a specific synergy that you're wanting to hit, like a multiple legendary draw that you could get in on. Next up is Spreading Plague. Oh yeah, this is the Druid card. Summon a 1/5 Scarab with Taunt. If your opponent has more minions, cast this again. So this is the same as the Defile, that it will keep happening until it's done. And on the surface, it looks really garbage, right? You get like 2 1/5s with Taunt for 5 mana. What the heck is that? But if your opponent has like 4 minions, you're going to summon 5 Scarabs with Taunt, because you always end up with 1 more minion than your opponent has. So it could be pretty good in that sense, especially if you combine it with some type of attack buff, right? The main disadvantage to these is that they have low attack. So if you gave them even just +1 attack, they'd be a lot more threatening. And I think that's something to consider with this. But yeah, the main advantage is it keeps casting it again, so you just do it when your opponent has a lot of stuff and it can be effective. Bit of a weird card, but I do think this is playable because of its like unique scenarios. And the final one for July 28th was the Frost Lich Jaina. Boy, they revealed a lot of cards. Frost Lich Jaina, 9 mana, summon a 3/6 water elemental. Your elementals have lifesteal this game. And your hero power becomes deal 1 damage. If this kills a minion, summon a 3/6 water elemental. So I think the hero power is the main draw from this. Initially playing it is pretty weak. You just get a water elemental. It's a really slow turn when you just put this down. And you can't hero power that turn either. But on the next turns, your hero power is super valuable, and that's where you're getting the draw from. You're getting the ability to summon free elementals. My main problem with this is Jaina is just so good in a bunch of other ways right now. I don't think it's going to get played. there's like 4 different playable mage types, and then there's going to be buffing quest mage some too with some of the other cards we've seen. So I really find it hard to play this in a mage deck that, although it seems okay on the surface, it's going to be really surprising to me if this can beat out the other mage styles in terms of effectiveness. So yeah, I would rate this one as slightly playable, but probably not something that's actually going to pick up a lot of steam. Okay, moving right along, the next card we're going to be looking at is Ice Walker. 2 mana, 1/3. Your hero power also freezes the target. Yeah, this seems pretty bad. You don't want a hero power in the early game, and you have a low mana or a low mana card that's understated for its mana. You're just not going to be hero powering like early on, so I don't see how this is that useful to you. I would rate this pretty poorly. It could have like base stats or something, and then it would be too good. But with weak stats, I'm just not convinced why I would want it. There have been a bunch of freeze synergies introduced, but even then, like, I'm just not convinced. The one good thing for it is it's an elemental. Mages do have a bunch of elemental synergy. Next up is Meat Wagon. Okay, this card's pretty weird. 4 mana, 1/4. Summon a minion from your deck with less attack than this minion. So I see, this is like a combo card. I see 2 main ways to use this. First, you try to buff it. If you buff its attack, it's going to summon a bigger minion. Second, you can have 0 attack minions. So you can have something like Nat Pagel or the eggs, the Ravasaur eggs, which will get summoned. Those are kind of my 2 main options. Most of the time I figure you want to buff this. It could go with a lot of combination effects, but it'll have to remain to be seen, like if it actually ends up being in a deck or if it's just a cool card that sits on the sideline, because it is requiring synergy. It's not something that works on its own. It needs synergy in multiple ways, in fact. So I'm going to reserve my judgment on this one, but I think it looks pretty cool. And I think it has the chance to be playable for sure, just with a bit of brain power behind it and a good deck build. Next up is Necrotic Geist. 6 mana, 5/3. Whenever one of your other minions dies, summon a 2/2 ghoul. I would put this below constructed playable. Its stats are just really bad. It's definitely a card you could play in Arena. It's like on the fringe. It doesn't do anything too good, and then summoning a 2/2, like, so you traded a 1/1 to summon a 2/2, wasn't like a huge advantage. I'm going to pick that one as not constructed playable. And then we have Cobalt Scalebane. Oh yeah, this guy was pretty cool actually. 5 mana, 5/3. At the end of your turn, give another random friendly minion +3 attack. So right away is a 5 mana, 5/5 that gives you a Blessing of Might. And that's pretty good. I think he's worth it just on that. The fact that he's going to keep doing it makes him threatening. But the best part is he's a 5 mana dragon. There's not a lot of 5 mana dragons. So if you're playing other classes besides Priest and you need dragons, you're out of options right now. And this guy will give you a lot more options for synergy with things like Bookworm or Netherspite Historian. And he's just good enough that, although he's a bit of a filler card, he is threatening and you're going to want to deal with him as the opponent. So I would rate this card pretty highly. His stats are all there, and he fits the perfect like place on the dragon curve that non-priest classes really struggle with. So I think that this guy is pretty solid. Cobalt Scalebane gets a thumbs up. Next up, Gnome Feratu. Yes. This is the Warlock card. 2 mana, 2/3. Battlecry, remove the top card of your opponent's deck. Okay, so a lot of people were complaining about this, but I actually don't think this card's that good. If you remove the top card of your opponent's deck, it could be any card. Although you could make them throw away a good thing, it's just any card. Unless they run to fatigue, that actually didn't matter. Either you got like the Alexstrasza on that really luck, or the game goes to fatigue and then it was useful. If the game does not go to fatigue, then this card was pretty much irrelevant. You just made them draw the next card instead. And its stats are fine, like it's 2 mana, 2/3, but it's not really cutting any teeth with it. I would rate this card somewhat poorly, although people were excited about this on Reddit. I just don't see it really being that good. It's not offering synergy. The one thing it's good with is like Dirty Rat combo maybe. You can remove 4 cards from your opponent's deck now instead. Yeah, a lot of games don't go to fatigue right now, and it's even harder to fatigue people as a Warlock, which makes this card a little less useful in my opinion. I would say not really that playable. It's a fun card though, and it's on the edge. Okay, next up we have the Warrior card. And this was the one I was thinking before. 3 mana, 1/4. Whenever this minion survives damage, summon a 2/2 ghoul. So yeah, you play this with the Warrior 1-drop. I mean, it's not the best, but you still have some cards like Rampage that you could use to buff this up. There's ways that you could make this summon multiple ghouls. I'd say this is pretty cool. Its stats aren't great. But it's offering like an alternate style of play to Warrior, which they're trying to build here, which is the like damage your minions style of play. So I do enjoy that style of play. I find it has a lot of math and whatnot to it. Makes it so a better player tends to be the one who does well with these decks. So on the principle of that, I like this card. On the stat basis, I think it's kind of average, maybe a bit of a filler card. So I'm not sure it'll actually get played in those types of decks, but it's a nice idea. Next up, we have Stitched Tracker. 3 mana, 2/2, discover a copy of a minion in your deck. Oh yeah, why would anyone ever play this? This card seems really bad, like really bad. Hunters have a lot of good 3 mana cards. It's their best mana slot. They have so many good 3 mana cards. You're gonna tell me I'm gonna play a 2/2 that discovers a copy of a minion that I already played? Or like is already in my deck? It's not even a beast. Like, its stats are super bad, and it's not even a beast. I would rate this card poorly. I don't know how it's going to get played. Maybe there's, like, some cool synergy, because it can discover a minion, and you could get, like, a legendary minion. Maybe you just have these guys, like Barnes and Yasharaj, and somehow you make that work. But I don't see this on the principle. Its stats are just super bad, and it's on the most contested mana slot for Hunter. And then we have the Sunborn Valkyr. This is a 5 mana 5/4. Battlecry, give adjacent minions +2 health. This one's a bit of a filler card, but its stats are there. I mean, it's like a 5/8 for 5 if you're hitting stuff with it. Super good arena card. Is it constructed worthy? I have to say it's more of a filler. It's not something you'd put in your deck with like the intention of winning the game. So I'm not convinced it's constructed worthy, but absolutely arena worthy. Because the stats are all there. It's just its only stats is its main problem for me. It does have an epic picture. Absolutely gorgeous artwork on some of these Knights of the Frozen Throne. So I give this one like a maybe. Bit of a maybe in there. Not quite convinced. Okay, moving right along. Next up we have a really crazy card. Archbishop Benedictus. This is the Priest Legendary. 7 mana 4/6, so its stats are really bad. Battlecry, shuffle a copy of your opponent's deck into your deck. We'll just let that sink in for a minute. Shuffle a copy of your opponent's deck into your deck. This is such a priest card. I don't know. You expect me to review this? What the heck's this even going to do? Its stats are bad, but its effect is maybe strong. That's my review. We're going to have to play this one to see, I think. This one's a little beyond the theory crafting. Because it depends entirely on what your opponent's deck is and like how you build a deck. A little too complicated for theory crafting, but it's an interesting idea. Once again, has really nice artwork. Next up, Phantom Freebooter. I looked at this one. This is a pirate and gain stats equal to your weapons. I think my main thing with why this won't get played is at most you're going to get 5 health. You're pretty much never going to get this minion to have more than 5 health. And there are times it's only going to have 4 health. And a high attack 4 health minion is not worth a lot, so it's on the edge of playability, but I don't think it's really going to add a whole lot of power to pirates just because it's still only going to have like Yeti amount of health at its best. It's just getting more attack damage, which is very piratey, I suppose. I'll give that one a tentative no. I just don't think it's quite what they want. Next up is a priest card, Embrace the Darkness. Choose an enemy minion at the start of your turn, gain control of it. This card's pretty cool. It's like a delayed mind control. Your opponent has some influence then where they can try to like alter the card before you get it, or they could silence this effect off, so those are some answers to it. It definitely does play to like priest strength where you're playing a slower game. So the priest is like healing himself, staying at high health. Opponent puts down a big minion, you embrace darkness. And it's not like you're going to die on the next turn, so you'll totally get time to take control of it. But I think the fact that the opponent can like alter or trade his minion is going to be a big disadvantage for this. Because if you play this and use your whole turn, and then your opponent like manages to not have it happen, you just wasted a card and your turn, and you didn't do anything. So on that sense, it's a really risky card. I think that'd be the main reason you don't see it included, is there's just so much risk involved with it getting played around. Next up we have Mindbreaker. Oh, this guy was pretty cool. 3 mana, 2/5, hero powers are disabled. I think this is actually constructed playable. It looks like an arena card, but its stats are really good. It's a resilient minion with a powerful effect, and there's all these hero powers from the Death Knights and stuff. I don't know, it's not really going in a deck that like I could envision right now, but on a raw card judgment, I think this card is really strong. You could have just a 3 mana 2/5 with no effect. This is kind of like it's a negative effect because it hits you too, so I think that's why it can be so powerful. But if you know that you're not going to be hero powering, then this card seems pretty amazing. So I would rate that one rather highly, even though it looks more arena-ish. Next up is Crypt Lord. 3 mana, 1/6. Taunt after you summon a minion, gain +1 health. Man, you thought druids with tokens were obnoxious right now. Wait until they get this thing. It's a slow minion, but it's going to keep getting bigger. And you give it an attack buff similar to those scarabs, it's going to be really powerful. This is definitely a token druid type card. I think this is trying to draw them away from using Tar Creeper, and it might be successful. I'm not sure if it's going to be better than Tar Creeper, but looks like it could be. The fact that it persistently scales means that as soon as your opponent doesn't kill it, every turn it's getting harder to kill now. I think this is a decently strong card that you could include in token druids. The only downside is it's not a beast. If it was a beast, it'd be crazy good. Then we get the Shaman Death Knight hero. Thrall the Deathseer. 5 mana. Battlecry, transform your minions into random ones that cost 2 more. And the hero power is transform a minion into one that costs 1 more, so your hero power becomes like a single target evolve. I think the initial effect is strong, but my problem with this is shamans can already do this. This isn't something that's making them way better, because Evolve is a 1 mana card. It's easy to cast Evolve, right? It's not weighted as like a highly mana heavy mechanic. And then totems are good. Totems are super good for a lot of stuff shamans want to do. I actually think the shaman hero power after being a Death Knight could be worse than having totems. So although this is one of the lower cost Death Knights and its effect is like pretty cool, I'm not quite sure it's going to get played just because totems are so good and evolving one thing at a time is not that good. So the hero power that comes from Thrall is more disappointing than the Death Knight itself. And I think that's the thing that might hold it back. But it plays to some of Shaman's strengths already. They build a board really early and then boom, you upgrade them twice. It'd be pretty nice. So I could see it working just on the principle of like playing this card is strong itself. And then we have Tome Lurker. Add a random Death Rattle minion that died this game to your hand. I think this one's not very good because it's a 5/3. 5/3 for 5 mana just don't stick around very long. It's also not a Discover, it's a random. You have some control over it though because it's one that died this game. I would not rate this card constructed quality, but maybe there's like a sneaky way you could do it. Next up we have Righteous Defender. Oh boy, this card's really ridiculous, isn't it? Okay, so this is a 1 mana 1/1 Taunt Divine Shield. This is like Argent Squire, but I think the thing to remember is they can play this and Argent Squire. Argent Squire is really good with buffs, especially things like hand buffs. And this is trying to push that a little more in my opinion. The fact that this is stronger than Argent Squire is already a big deal, but Argent Squire was the best for those things and you can put both of them in so you're more consistently getting these mechanics where you're stacking them together. You're getting 2 Righteous Defenders and a Squire and you're buffing them all together. This presents a Paladin, aggressive Paladin build that like I'm not sure how you're going to be able to beat it. This stuff can just come down so early and so strong. It'll be interesting to see what happens with it, but I would definitely rate this card constructed playable. Even on its own, like without any buffs, it's a huge pain to try to get through with your minions. Like you could just play this card, but it also has obviously a lot of synergy with Paladins, so I think that's the main thing you're looking at, and why this card is so good, but definitely a good card there. It's an improvement on the best like neutral 1-drop that you can use for those mechanics. Next up we have Corpse Widow. Hunter card, 5 mana 4/6, your death roll cards cost 2 less. Its stats are good, its effect is kind of powerful. It's a bit expensive. I think that's its main problem. But this is the most expensive card that can come from Build-A-Beast, so you could use this effect with Build-A-Beast as well. I don't know. It's a bit of a filler card, but I feel like it's good. It has an effect and a good body, both of which are solid, and it's a beast. It looks ugly as heck, though, in the artwork, doesn't it? But yeah, I think you could play this card. I think that it definitely has a chance to be used, and even if it wasn't used, you'd be very happy when you got it off a random beast mechanic. It's like a pretty awesome one. Then we have Corpse Razor. Oh right, this one was really weird. 5 mana 3/3, this is a neutral card. Give a friendly minion Death Rattle, resummon this minion. This card is like a massive combo card, and this is also one of the cards I would put as like one of the most interesting so far this expansion. This effect looks a bit plain, but it's actually really crazy, and my mind just starts to wander with all the possibilities you could do with this, given it's a neutral card. Its stats are low for its mana cost, but the effect it has is undoubtedly powerful. And I just wonder like what combinations you're going to be able to come up with. I hope that it's playable. I think that it is, because it's really cool. Of course, giving a friendly minion Death Rattle would mean it does not count as a Death Rattle still for things like N'Zoth. It's only going to work for that turn. But yeah, there's got to be a way this is good, right? I don't know, it seems really cool. I like cards like this that have a theme where you're pushing like some combinations and stuff that you get to play around with. Definitely interested to try that one out. Next up we have Runeforge Haunter. Oh yeah, 4 mana 5/3 is a rogue minion. During your turn, your weapon doesn't lose durability. So this is played like pretty well on curve. I think you're going to be putting it down on 4. The main problem with this is that, okay, so it's basically 4 mana 5/3, your weapon gains 1 durability. If it stays on the board, yeah, your weapon's going to do it again, but most of the time they're going to be able to kill a 5/3. So your weapon gains 1 durability. That's pretty cool. Just rogues have a lot of good 4 mana minions. You have like Philo Teacher, you have the legendaries. So in that sense, it's competing for a hard mana slot. I think on principle, it's like pretty okay, but just because it's competing with so many other good 4 mana cards, I'm not sure that this card is really constructed playable. Master of Disguise Design Space, yeah. If you could stealth this card and just like leave it hanging around, it'd be really strong. It's just a little too easy to remove. If those stats were switched and it was a 3/5, it would be a way better card. Moves us up to Devour Mind. Priest spell, 5 mana. Copy 3 cards in your opponent's deck and add them to your hand. This is like the Nourish of Thoughtsteal. I would say that this card is very good. Priests often have problems getting enough cards, and a bigger card that draws a lot of cards is more powerful than a smaller one. That's kind of a awkward thing to say, but like, when you play Thoughtsteal, you pay 1 card and you get 2, so you've increased your hand size by 1 card. You had 8, you play Thoughtsteal, you have 7, you draw 2, you get 9. You started with 8, you end with 9. When you play Devour Mind, you're getting 2 additional cards. You're paying 1 for Devour Mind and 2 more are ending up in your hand, which actually makes it twice as effective as something like Thoughtsteal. It's a little bit hard to understand that, but it's because paying the card is a cost, so when you're paying it for 2 draw, you're only getting the 1 extra. This makes this card very strong for Priest anyways. They often do not have enough cards, and being able to just say, okay, my deck needs more value, I'm going to throw in double Devour Mind, I think is a really legit choice for a Priest. So, cool card, and definitely pushes on the Priest style already of stealing cards from your opponent. I don't even know if I'm going to have any of my own cards in my Priest deck after this point. Glacial Mysteries. Oh yeah, 8 mana mage spell. Put 1 of each secret from your deck into the battlefield. Okay, I feel like this is just to nerf random mage cards. It could be good if you like really built a deck around it, right? If you like really built a deck around this, okay, maybe it's good. But if you only had 3 secrets and you like draw 1 of the secrets and stuff, it's pretty crappy for 8 mana. And when you get this out of like Kabbalah's Tome or Primordial Glyph, you're just never going to pick it. You definitely did not have enough secrets in your deck when you got it randomly to make it worth it. Imagine you play Kabbalah's Tome and you get Glacial Mysteries and there's like 1 secret in your deck. What do you even do with this card? It just wastes your whole turn. You got to get it out of your hand somehow so you don't overdraw. I think this is directly a nerf to random mage cards, and you know, maybe there will be a deck that uses it, but all of the other mage decks are going to hate seeing this card because it's complete shit for them. So that's a good card in my opinion. although it's not really playable, or it's mostly not playable. The fact that it's introducing itself to solve a problem with, right now, mages have way too many good random cards, I think is a good solution. Next up we have the Priest card, Obsidian Statue. 9 mana, 4/8, Taunt, Lifesteal, Death Rattle, destroy an enemy minion. This card has to be good, right? Your opponent gets some control over how many minions they have, but it even has Lifesteal. Like, did it need Lifesteal? It was probably good enough without that. I don't know. 9 mana is a bit hard to play, though. It's the same stats as Primordial Drake, and Primordial Drake at 8 mana tends to kill stuff. I'm a bit torn on this. It's really expensive, and expensive cards are hard to put in a Priest deck. There's no way you're gonna, like, randomly get this, right? Doesn't really have a ton of synergy. Its one main synergy is N'Zoth. N'Zoth is amazing with this card, because you're getting a 4/8 taunt out of it. So you play this, then you play N'Zoth. But a super slow card, and that's the thing that's gonna hold it back. I think on the average stats, it's like, okay. But yeah, it's just, can you actually get to that point in the game and play this? Is the bigger question for me. I'll give it a tentative yes. Next up is Simulacrum. Now I feel like this card's really bad in most cases, except for one specific case. So this card seems really bad, whether you get it randomly or you try to put it in your deck. What are you going to do? Copy of Mana Worm? But there's the one build that it's really good for, and that is Quest Mage. And now the first thing I'm not sure is, if I have an Arcane Giant at 0 mana, does this copy the Arcane Giant, or does it go by the original cost of the Giant, which would be 12? If it's able to copy Arcane Giant, I think it's even better. But let's say it can't copy Arcane Giant. It's at least going to be able to copy Sorcerer's Apprentice, and Sorcerer's Apprentice is really powerful for Quest Mage. So if it can copy Giant, it's powerful for multiple types of Quest Mage. And if it can just copy Sorcerer's Apprentice, you're still going to put this in because it's going to work every time. So I think that this card, in general, is bad for mages, but it can be really useful in the right builds of mages, to the point that it's a huge buff to them. You're going to be finishing your Quest Mage completion way more often when you don't need to get exactly both Sorcerers and both Molten Reflections. Instead, you can have one Sorcerer and then Simulacrum it twice and have one Molten Reflection. Suddenly you're done already. Adds a lot of consistency to that. And yeah, with Arcane Giants, it's amazing, right? You're slamming down some Arcane Giants, and you just make some extra ones for 3 mana. It's pretty beef. Seeing statues. Next we have the Rogue Legendary Lillian Voss. 4 mana, 4/5. So this is a Yeti. The Yeti is a good card for 4 mana. Battlecry, replace spells in your hand with random spells from your opponent's class. I am so terrified of this card. I think this card is absolutely playable. Like, 100% it's playable in Constructed, and it just gives you random stuff, and your opponent has no way to play around that random stuff. Like, this card is terrifying amounts of RNG, and I just think it's always going to get played, so I'm scared. I don't know if you guys are scared, but this one definitely looks playable, and I'm going to be scared of it. I'm going to be very scared of this card. Like, the Priest card is not scary. Archbishop, he's not scary. He comes into play and you're like, okay, that's his strategy. He's stealing my deck. The Rogue card comes into play and you're like, oh, that wasn't his strategy. That was just one part of his deck. And he just flipped the table, and now he's playing checkers instead of chess. And I can't see any of his pieces, and I'm going to have to guess where I move my checkers now. It's like, this is such a terrifying card when you're in Constructed. We have 4 more to do that were revealed today. The next one is Unwilling Sacrifice. This is a Warlock card. Choose a friendly minion, destroy it, and a random enemy minion. I think on the surface this card seems okay. It's just Warlock has so many ways to kill minions already. Like, you have Corruption, you have Corrupting Mist, you have Siphon Soul, you have Blast Crystal Potion, you have normal amounts of damage like Shadow Bolt, Hellfire. So I'm not sure why you would want to play this card. You have to kill your own minion, that's not so bad. It has a random enemy minion too, like you don't even get to choose. I'm going to rate this card pretty poorly. It's just for a class that can already do too much removal, and it's random, it's not even targeted, so that's pretty poor as well. I think if it was targeted friendly and enemy, it'd be a lot better. Then we have another Shaman Freeze card, as if they didn't get enough already. Murloc. 2 mana, 2/2 Murloc, freeze an enemy. So there's also that elemental for 1 mana that freezes an enemy, huh? This seems worse than the Elemental for 1 mana, but then you can stack them together, I guess. Yeah, I'm still going to reserve my judgment on the Freeze Shaman. I really am going to have to play this to understand what Shaman is like with freezing things. But I think it could be pretty cool. Shamans have a lot of AoE, so when you hold back your opponent from attacking and they keep building a board and then you smite them with a Devolved Lightning Storm, you're getting a lot done with that. I really have to see the Freeze Shaman played. I think that this card is kind of a low stat card, but could work, I guess, if those freeze mechanics were really cutting it for Shaman. 2 more. The next one is Treachery, another Warlock card. Choose a friendly minion, your opponent gains control of it. Okay, we just saw this one. It was just released, and we were trying to think about how we could use it. The obvious combo is Doomsayer. You got Doomsayer, and you give it to your opponent, and then suddenly it clears the whole board. It's a 5 mana, kill everything on the board. But what other minions could you use? And someone suggested the Ticking Abomination that we've seen before. I don't know, maybe you guys want to leave a comment and tell me what you can think of with this, because other than Doomsayer, I can't see a lot of great plays with it. There's probably something else out there that you can do some cool stuff with, so this is a good thing to leave a comment on if you have some sharp ideas for it. And the final card we've seen today is the Rogue Legendary, or the Rogue Death Knight, Valera the Hollow. This is a 9 mana card. Battlecry gains stealth until your next turn. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Gaining stealth for the rogue, I think, is really cool. Because rogues are often taking a lot of damage at this point in the game. There's like a mage trying to pyroblast you or something. So gaining stealth and just avoiding damage for a turn can be really nice. And then the effect you get, Death's Shadow. Passive hero power. During your turn, add a shadow reflection to your hand. So we did a bit of research on this. The shadow reflection disappears at the end of every turn. So that means if I play a card more than 5 mana, I can't play my shadow reflection that turn because the shadow reflection also costs more than 5 mana. And then it will just disappear by next turn. So this really only works on cards that are 5 mana or lower, so you can actually use it. But it's giving you like a whole nother card every turn, and sometimes rogues are really starving for value at the end of the game. So you do this with Arcane Giant, or you do this with like just a 4 mana Sherazin or something, and you're getting multiple of those. I think that's a cool way to try to win the game. One of the nice things for Rogue is they can draw their whole deck really consistently. We were playing some Miracle Rogue yesterday, and just most of the matches you're going to get to like 5 cards left while your opponent has about 15 cards. So Rogue has the highest chance to guarantee that they're getting their Death Knight in play. And you could do this almost every game then because of that. I do think this is a pretty cool Death Knight in that sense. Its only drawback is how expensive it is. If it was less mana, it would be a no-brainer, yes. But it's really expensive, and it's hard to live that long as a rogue. So I'll give it a tentative. It's pretty good, but I can't say for sure it's going to get played at that cost. And with that, we have seen up to 71 of the 135 cards that are going to be revealed. I mean, probably there's 1 or 2 more card reviews I will do. Make sure to leave a comment if you liked the video, and I will see you guys again for the next one.